Does it got to be? Does it got to be the heavy? Does it? Does it got to be? I don't think it does got to be. I mean, I don't know. But I'm pretty sure that there are many things in the universe. I think we had this conversation. If you focus on one thing, yeah, then that thing kind of becomes one side of an equation where everything else in the universe becomes the other thing. And it can lead to errors in judgment and what have you. But yes, of course it is. Oh, why is that happening? Bloody camera. Yeah, okay. So it's Friday evening and the E-Chapel is open, and TF2 Real Gamer 2022, despite knowing that the goddess Eris never appears as the same thing twice, has this strange idea that it's going to be the heavy. I mean, who knows if that section's even in the service? Who knows that? So I'm just going to get my monitor working properly. There we go. My monitor is now working properly. Blue icon if no heavy. Blue icon with an arrow pointing downward if no heavy. What do you mean you're going to deduct me Discordian points? Okay. I mean, I can't do anything. Can't do anything about that. Oh, that's still going, by the way. I have thoughts, but they have to be saved now until the Saints' Day. But the point situation is ongoing. I hope you've been keeping track of yours, not only the ones that you receive, but also the ones you give out. You choose that I choose that you get no points. I mean, that's probably appropriate. I'm the point arbiter. I'm the chairman of points. So for me to have points seems unfair somehow. It's like the bingo caller having a bingo card. Yeah, that doesn't work. How is that supposed to be appropriate? It's a clear conflict of interest. So I agree with you that I have no points. I mean, I haven't given myself any points. I only give them out. I have had a thought about the difference between someone knows the point of no return. Exactly. The point of no return. So yeah, I have had a thought about the whether being confused. It is confusion, so that's fine. It's fine for me to be confused. But the confusion between whether the points should be positive or negative, whether having like minus 500 points is better than having plus 500. What I've come to the conclusion of is that every negative value is just a mirror of a positive value. Therefore, all values of points could be positive. So you can treat them as negative or positive however you want, but we shall describe them as positive because the negative version is just the mirror of the positive version. It's quite easy to keep track of. So it's much easier for me rather than to say, if you want minus 10, then have -10. Well, you too, by the way, are also the arbiters. Maybe I didn't make that clear last week, but all Discordians in the orbit of the Saints' Day and doing this activity until mid-July, you can all give out or take away points to other Discordians participating, or even non-Discordians. The point of it is to recognise Discordianness in the world. So even if someone's not a Discordian, you can still give them points. Maybe they will have the same use, maybe they will have more use. Who knows? We're already deep in the weeds, so I should probably just get on with it. So I've got the full disclaimer this week. I shall. Let's do it all for a change. Let's just do it. I'll do it quick, but we'll do it all because we haven't done it all for weeks. All acts of Discordianism portrayed herein are for spiritual entertainment purposes only. No spiritual enlightenment or transcendent experience is offered or implied. Leaps of faith and logical backflips are performed by trained sophists. Do not attempt to recreate at home. Any resemblance to other religions, alive, dead, or merely untenable, is entirely coincidental. Hail Eris and immanentize the eschaton and brands of the Discordian society. All associated intellectual property rights are probably also wrongs, just the way they are these days. Fnord. There you go, we've done the disclaimer. Good. And the order of service, yes, you're very lucky, TF2 Real Gamer 2022. Faces of Eris is indeed part of the show. So, I will concede that there is a tiny, vanishingly small chance that because this section is Fnord, exactly, because there's a tiny chance, because the section of the show is happening, it might be the heavy. But I'm telling you, the chances are very, very, very slim. So let's get on with the show. The service. Well, it is spiritual entertainment, so I suppose it's both a service and a show. But it is definitely a service, so I'll go with that. Yes, this week's Deep Thought, the title, As Time Goes By Us. This week it has been called to my attention that the concept of the sniper from TF2 then, there is a greater chance of it being the sniper, but I'm going to tell you now, still not very high. But I've been drawn to this idea of bias that people toss about, and all things. It's mainly because, obviously, with the whole looking out for points to be awarded thing, any character or jar of piss. Not so much the jar of piss, because we also did that. Oh no! It could be the jar of piss because once she was everything except the jar of piss in Team Fortress 2. Ask how many hours of TF2 you have. I'm a sniper man with 7,000 plus hours in the game and 800 plus in sniper. Oh, there we go. So there's a Team Fortress 2 conversation going off, which is fine because what I've noticed is that in trying to give away Discordian points, I am often waylaid. First of all, reposting other people's hilarious memes or cartoons. Often you can't justify it because all someone's doing is reposting something someone else did. So I'd probably be really giving the points to the originator of the cartoon or meme, and I don't know who that is. I'm a fat loser with 4k hours or all on medic. No, 5k hours. Oh, okay, cool. So I couldn't do that. And the other thing that happens in Discordian groups is that the memes are either have an extremely right-wing bias or an extremely left-wing bias or anti-right-wing bias. Essentially, bias is really important to the memes that come up in internet Discordian groups. And then it doesn't seem right to give points because so the point of being Discordian is not to not have a bias, although it is true that your bias should be weird, and it's more not so much that the bias is left or right, it's the fact that it acknowledges and tries to make true in some way this artificial, politically created left-right. The map is not the territory. The map ran out a long time ago on left and right. A Discordian these days should be in the I think in the arena of not really acknowledging left or right, just acknowledging the constructs that go on in the circus of left and right. Yeah, so you can't give points to anyone who makes points about left or right, because that kind of acknowledges or presupposes that left and right exist. And my contention is that they don't really. If they ever did, they certainly don't now. And in fact, those people that I watch who are, in the world of social medias, YouTubes and stuff, who are avowedly left wing, are just as ridiculous to a certain extent, because the left wing creates the right wing and vice versa. It's just the same as anything else. Eristic forces create anaristic forces and vice versa. I know who the face of Eris is. Okay, TF2 Real Gamer 2022. You can know as much as you want. So what I was kind of saying was that I have biases. The political compass is a 2D plane. Discord is roaming many more dimensions above, around, about those planes. Political or otherwise, some of all noobs. You nail it. You nail it right there. Sorry, I'll read it a bit slower in case people are not reading it or they're listening to it somewhere else. The political compass is a 2D plane. Discordians roam in many more dimensions above and around about the planes, political or otherwise. What are you European? What? You're asking some of all noobs if some of all noobs is European. Right, there we go. Good. Thank you, TF2 Real Gamer 2022. Always good to keep the chat. When you're confusing people, it's always good to know who it is you're confusing. But confusing other people you didn't mean to confuse is also fine. Right, so I would. The only bit of that I'd take issue with, some of all noobs, is this idea that the political compass is a 2D plane. The political compass is whatever the consensus reality decides it is. Now, you are correct that the consensus reality at the moment has glommed onto this. It's easy to understand. Problem with it is, and in the UK, we have one party that has a red colour and the other blue, so it's red versus blue. Yeah, basically each party can think that, my party are the goodies and the other party are the baddies. I'm from New Zealand, but I have British cultural leanings, grew up watching UK comedy on TV. Very good. Well, that's nice. Oh shit, TF2 reference. Red versus blue. Yes, exactly. Well, the thing is, the US also has a party that's red and a party that's blue. Red versus blue is sort of a thing that's just... It's a meme. It's an independent piece of thought that people have settled upon as denoting something. They're not sure what, but it denotes something. Bloody Tron's got red versus blue in it. So, red versus blue is kind of a cultural thing, that two opposing sides of red versus blue. And the idea of it is that because they're red and they're blue, that neither one is the baddie and neither one is the goodie. Now, what's really interesting is that in Tron, the baddie is red and the goodie is blue. And in the US, and I'm not saying anything here, but Republicans are red and the Democrats are blue. Yeah. But although everyone now agrees that both are completely evil, so there is a bit of a problem there. In the UK, red is formerly the goodies, the Labour Party and the Conservative Party, who now almost don't exist at all. They were the blue ones, yeah, and thus coming to the invention in the last political cycle of a thing. Well, not invention, but resurrection of the idea of a red Tory. That is, a Labour politician who is really just a Tory wearing a red rosette. And that. So yeah, I mean, so really, where is the Discordian party at? I know, right? I don't know. I think that, we've had in the UK, because of the way that it works, we've had like the Monster Raving Loony Party and things like that. So there have certainly been representation, but of course, the point is that when people understand that Discordianism is a religion that's a joke, or a joke that's a religion, they do tend to glom onto the fact that it's a joke. and not so much religion. Besides which, it seems unseemly for a religion to have a political party. For a political party to have a religion, it's actually just as unseemly, but some political parties go with it. The Conservatives in the UK like to be Church of England. The Republicans, some vague anything where you like Jesus, but don't listen to anything he says. That's all fine. But for there is no, we are the Catholic political party. We're Catholics first and a political party second. We are the Buddhist political party. We're Buddhists first and a political party second. We are it doesn't work. So I guess that's the answer to the question. The Discordian Party does not exist because it would be inappropriate for it to exist. Even other religions have been able to work out that they shouldn't have a political party that is for the religion. Religion and politics should attempt to be kept separate, except where politics tries to attract religious voters by pretending or representing that they represent the members of that religion. Apparently that's absolutely fine. I would vote for you if you're running for president. Well, thank you very much. I'm glad that I've got your vote, TF2 Real Gamer 2022. But I'm not, as I've just explained. Anyway, the point is that it's not like I don't have a bias. I like listening to left-wing commentators because the MK's Ariel. Hello. We're sort of talking. We are talking politics. We're talking about about bias and how modern culture seems to regard bias as something bad. But I think that when I was taught about bias, I think I was taught that it's only bad if you don't disclose it. Like if you say, hi, I'm going to have a left-wing bias, and then you talk left-wing, then that's fine, as I understand it. Because then people can view your statements in line with the fact that you have bias. But over time, particularly since around the late 80s in Western society, various parties have foolishly, not political parties, just people, groups of people, the Independent newspaper, as it started in the UK, there was the rub. The idea, we're not going to be left or right or anything else. We're independent. We're unbiased. Yeah, I'm biased towards the middle, dead centre. Like a TF2 sniper main hitting his target. Yes, that's a way to be biased toward the middle, dead centre. But of course, the dead centre of any Cartesian coordinate system is 0. Nothing. So there's a problem. Maybe. That's the point. Yeah. If something is truly 100% objective, it eventually ends up being just nothingy. So everything bias is flavour. You know? Like, if I say I have a left-wing flavour or a right-wing flavour, or at least you've got a flavour, saying you've got no bias is just basically saying I'm unflavoured. I taste of nothing. I'm entirely bland and ignorable. So, yeah, I think the point is that you should be aware of I'm biased towards banning Sniper because he is overpowered. There we go. You see? And in any conversation where that's relevant, you see what you've revealed there, some of all noobs, is that you two are biased the same way. Yeah? And that's how it works. And for all the people who are not biased that way, they can evaluate your following statements with that lens in mind, and that's okay. And I think honestly that's one of the problems that we've had with all this fake news, toxic news sources and stuff, is the fact that they, if you say, you're completely biased towards a right-wing fascist outlook, if those right-wing fascist news sources were like, I am, that would be slightly less heinous than them just going, no, I'm in the side of common sense, and this is the way that all right-thinking people think. That's tacitly not an admission of bias. That's saying that everybody who isn't biased like you is, wrong and bad. And that's the whole point, I think. I think the whole point is that in a more civilized age, the reason that you could have people disagree but not want to kill each other, unalive each other, sorry YouTube, was that everyone just said, well, that's the way I'm biased. Whereas now people have some kind of emotional investment in their opinion. Whereas to say, well, I'm biased that way, so that's just the way it seems to me, you can separate yourself from it. I don't know. That's just the way it seemed to be going. And the reason that I came to this conclusion is because when someone is biased clearly but not announcing their bias, and then thinking, wouldn't it be Discordian of me to post this fascist stroke anti-fascist meme in a Discordian group, and I am like, I cannot give these any points because your bias is not declared, for a start, and for a second, if it was declared, you'd realise that these politically themed memes are not truly Discordian. They're for some other group which is about politics and the biases that people have in politics, and dragging it into a Discordian group. Discordianism is a religion. As we've already discussed, religions ideally do not wed themselves to political things, and vice versa. So there we go. That's where I am with that at the moment. It does make for rather depressing Discordian content in Discordian groups, because almost all of it is, I mean, I think anarchism is inherently Discordian. Well, anarchism, well, it kind of is, because anarchism means not having a leader. Oh, and all, I mean, but it depends, you see, because there's different subcategories. Like pure anarchism is obviously Discordian because it says we're not even going to consider structures like that. We should stop with politics. Exactly. Well, I think we should. I think that's exactly. We should. Do you mean we in this discussion should stop? Because I already said this is kind of a meta conversation. It's about how I feel profoundly uncomfortable when Discordian groups online are political, because Discordianism is a religion, and inherently religions have eschewed politics. Although I'm pretty sure that's not true in certain parts of the good old USA, where certain preachers and what have you do wed themselves to political campaigns. I'm an insurrectionary anarchist, personally. And that's the thing, you see. Again, reveal your bias, state your case, clear your identity, and then we can weigh your statements that way. But that doesn't necessarily mean anything in a Discordian e-chapel, because that is what you do. The point of the Discordianism is, in fact, to acknowledge the great works that Eris has done for us, you know, in setting us free from, well, all of that politics stuff, and thinking about, you could be a Discordian and have a right-wing bias in theory, or a Discordian and have a left-wing bias in theory, but they should not be a central part of your Discordianness. They should just be something you do because a person's a rounded person. They have many aspects, and the idea that you can walk into a chapel, church, or onto a message board, I mean, to be fair, the original Discordians were deeply involved in American counterculture of the 1960s, and therefore that counterculture, it was counter to a culture, wasn't it? It was deeply ingrained, and there was a political sort of idea to it. But if you go as far as the Illuminatus trilogy, largely agreed to be a Discordian work of literature, they pretty much say that all politicians are bad, and that's where Discordianism came down. That politics is bad, man. Personally, I'm only Discordian because of my anarchism. Yeah, but that's fine, because what you mean is you found Discordianism because you were an anarchist. You're like, well, that seems like a spiritual path worth looking into. But it is possible that as you keep going with Discordianism, you stop being an anarchist for whatever reason and still are a Discordian. That's just giving some kind of weight to chronological ordering of what order events happened into. And it's fine to create your own narrative, right? But at the end of the day, it's possible in another universe that a version of you exists that was a Discordian and then became attracted to anarchism because of that. Therefore, it's what matters is the categories, not which order they happened in or whether you think there's a causal link between them. Yeah. So, So what I'm basically saying is not to be free from bias, but to recognise your bias and recognise also that Discordianism, therefore, certain topics are outside. It's really complicated. Really, really complicated mentally, trying to sort. I mean, that is it. The creation of identity for ourselves is a complicated process, right? And Discordianism is a religion that encourages you to do so through the lens of chaos, and therefore acknowledging the chaos, and therefore it sometimes makes your head a bit hurty. So there we are. So if anyone has any specific questions on that topic right now, although I think we've all created for ourselves a rounded view of, we all already have our own opinions, which is great. The congregation and the pastor are all pretty much agreed that it's all fucking nonsense. Why? That's your question, TF2 Real Gamer 2022. Because I said so. There we go. Good. Excellent. We can move on from that question. So other than that ultimate question. No, sorry, I have an alternative. I'm going to replace that. Answer to the question why version 2.0 is why not? Yeah, there we go. Cool. Right. Yeah, that's much simpler. Brilliant. One in on a t-shirt. Why? Why not? Yeah. Or why not? Why? Either way, doesn't matter. It is in self the sacred cow. Hail Eris. Yes. That's been plenty of much time for anyone else to formulate a question of any sort. So I think. Well, everybody wants this anyway, and by everyone I mean TF2 Real Gamer, and by wants it I mean they want it to be what they want it to be. And so here we are, Faces of Eris. The clue as to which face Eris will be wearing upon this occasion is by her command. Please, man. Oh, right. I was banned from our Discordian subreddit, so I created our Discordian 2 subreddit, of which I'm the only member, to be all-inclusive, but felt guilty welcoming war criminals, and I forced myself to explicitly welcome war criminals, and now I feel free. Did I do good? That's a really good question, which I will answer. Right, okay, yes, to a certain extent, because Reddit is what it is, which is Reddit, I understand why Discordian, the R Discordian subreddit, has some pretty heavy gates on just anyone posting at all, right? They have a really heavy points requirement before you're allowed to say anything in there. But the point about it is, what you realise is that R Discordian is unfairly perhaps a target for bad actors. I mean, and look at where they don't have such requirements, such as all the Facebook groups, which I've just spent, 10, 15 minutes whinging about how all it is fascist memes and anti-fascist memes. So, there is now 2 members in our Discordian too. All right. Yeah, you might get 3 in a while when I can remember. You see, I abandoned Reddit because of the Discordian thing. I recently was excluded from a Discordian space for being too chaotic. What's up with that? Yeah, I think that we could be alone together. Yay. That's lovely. Yeah, I do. MK Zario, how can I possibly say to you any more than that? That is the problem. I guess that is one of the problems. And this is one of the interesting things. The e-chapel has become, if not a safe space, because you can't create those. That's not possible on the internet. Yeah, but it is a space where I think the method of participation precludes, I think, any kind of forum. It's so annoying when organisations develop problems with fascism. Yeah, I mean, the point is that the fascist posters in these Discordian groups are like, well, you're into chaos, so I should be able to do whatever I want. What I want to do is retread all of my boring fascist memes. Which is it's a choice, okay? And that's what inflames people who are anti-fascist to be like, well, this, to bring balance to the force, I must come back. But then Discordian type Discordians are like, is there even any point? In fact, I have seen several whinging posts from people go, well, it's all just become fash versus anti-fash. Well, that's not very Discordian, is it? I remember when people were just rando in here. That is also a problem with Discordianism, the idea that you have necessarily to be completely rando. As we have discovered in past services, if you act in an anarchistic way, such as to make an e-chapel and have a service every Friday at 7 p.m, then you will necessarily create more kind of eristic energy. Now, as we know, eristic energy is chaotic, but it's not true chaos. And I think that people are kind of hung up. Sometimes you get a mental hang up on exhibiting true chaos, when really that's also anti-fascism isn't a political view, it's common decency. Well, yeah, I mean, the point is that anti-fascism wins for me on my bias, because don't be nasty to people, let them live their lives if they're not hurting anybody, and celebrate when they feel better about themselves and not worse about themselves. I mean, that is one of the weird things. I do follow a good number of trans creators on YouTube, just because what I've discovered, well, I'll just say that my wife, who is not trans, but did have a very hard time, a lot of trauma when she was growing up for various reasons. And what I've noticed about people who've been through a lot of trauma or wrestling or with this and that internally, whether because of abuse or because of, other circumstances, tend to have a much more, as the youth say these days, based approach to life. They understand the ins and outs of, do no harm, live and let live, celebrate love, everybody should be happy. They really understand that. Sorry, TF2 Real Gamer 2022. I will be finished my point. We shall get on to the thing next. And that's just how it is. And I think that wrestling with these issues, whatever they are, trauma or identity, being misassigned gender-wise, all of that stuff, and coming through that process, just tends to give people a much more reasonable outlook on the rest of life. Generally, it seems that way. And in fact, people don't need to go through all that stuff in order to have a generally reasonable. But there are some people who don't have a reasonable view on the rest of life, who tend to be right-wing, and I find it doesn't help if they're, having further issues. But how are we going to deal with that? There tends to be a lack of honesty. Okay, TF2 Real Gamer 2022, you're going to be disappointed. I know you are, because it's nothing to do with Team Fortress 2, I'm afraid. This week's Face of Eris is the World of Chaos, which is in fact the thing that has been commanded. So Eris has made this command, and as such, for this week, her word is become her. She is the command. Blah blah blah. What is the World of Chaos? He asks. The World of Chaos is necessitating me making a new slide. But I think I've already got an idea of how I'm going to make that slide, so don't get too excited. It is repurposing bias. Yes. Now, of course, as I've said, my bias is towards left-wing and kind opinions. You know where I live. Yeah, South Wales. It's not a huge place, but 2/3 of the Welsh population live there, right on the coast like I do. So good. That's fine. So basically, my bias is towards anything that exhibits some kind of kindness or acknowledgement of the humanity of others. I should really do a deep thoughts about the monkey sphere. That I've known about. That was before I was new of Discordianism, but I hadn't really identified I'm a Discordian when I came across the concept of the monkey sphere. And I was so enchanted by this concept that it led naturally down. I think if you acknowledge the monkey sphere, then you end up being a Discordian eventually down the line. So in very brief, but I'll go into it in more depth. The monkey sphere is this idea that hard-coded into our neurogenetics is a thing where we can really only think of somewhere around 120 people as being other people like us. Yeah, like actual. So, it tends to get filled up with members of your family and close friends and, stuff like that. And then once you get to that limit, it's a hard limit. Your brain simply cannot process thinking of more people than that as actually human. All the rest of the people get relegated into this NPC status where you don't really think of them as actual people. This is what leads you to maybe break a glass and then put it straight in the trash where it could poke through and slash the bin man's hand open, because you physically can't think of the bin man as another human being. Your brain actually physically prevents that to stop it overheating and going pop, right? But that's the point. Because we have this hard limit, we've got to be very, very careful about how we think of people who naturally will inevitably fall into that NPC status, and failure to do that is what leads to the popular practice of Karen documenting, where people just forget that service staff in shops are actually people as well, and so on and so forth. And as soon as you realize that you and every other human on the planet has this hard limit, that you've only got 125 slots, and after that people are they're people-shaped pieces of meat to you, and if what you think about people generally is what you think about those people who are not inside your monkey sphere. And so that is why we have to be very careful in constructing an identity that imbues non-monkey sphere humans with a full sort of intellectual raft of humanity. You have to cultivate that idea that people that you physically are incapable of thinking of as humans are treated with dignity, because you're physically incapable of actually humanizing them without popping someone that is already in the 125 off the list. So that's why my bias is towards kindness, because monkey sphere. We'll talk about it more another time. So yes, what we're trying to do with the world of chaos is to hack bifurcated categorization. That is, we tend to always have this idea, Ross, VL and Dunbar number. Yeah, I've got the whole book about that. Yeah, what's really fascinating about that stuff, is that it's noted, but nobody ever sort of teases out the implications, or there's not much literature on it. In fact, I got my introduction from a Cracked article, which is about the only piece of literature that exists outside of the original sort of anthropological and neuroscientific noting of the hard limit. And even in the book, the popular science book that kind of talks about this study, it's in one chapter, and then the rest of the book is about something else. So I was expecting an entire book about because there are a lot of implications to the monkey sphere. But yeah. So yeah, one of the things that happens. Oh, we should probably be in game mode so you can actually see the slide. That would be cool. So bifurcated categorization is a flippant, that was the F word I was thinking of, way of talking about our tendency to do us and them thinking, our tendency to have eristic and anaristic. Just, there are two types of people in the world. That is bifurcated categorization. And the fact is that it's useful occasionally, but it's never the truth, as nothing is. But, there we go. Even truth and lies, there's a bifurcated categorization. Yeah, we got to work very hard to defeat, or to say wherever we've found that useful, there's another place where it isn't useful and isn't even true. So that's what the world of chaos is supposed to address. Yes, we're taking control of the idea of this and not this, X and not X. The way that our brains try to trick us, because the brains get tired. And so thinking about issues or complications or whatever it is always boils down to this and not this. And we have to be aware of that's our limitation. It's our problem. We have to deal with the fact that it is that way, that's how our brain is going to try and ultimately solve whatever it is that we're trying to think of. It is, in fact, the power of mysticism. I've talked before about how I'm aware of and understanding of the concept of magic. Yeah, but all the magic stuff that I do, are you for or against trans rights? A secret third thing, invalid answer, invalid question. Exactly. That when, and that's the point, people are going to come at you and try and get you, is it this or is it that? Is it? And to be fair, it's fine. Somebody asked me tent or hammock the other week. Yeah, absolutely fine. There's a bifurcated categorization I could get behind, because it is very clear that tent and hammock are not possibly the only two values. Yeah, because it doesn't make sense. Bifurcated categorizations that in fact inherently make no sense are terrific, because they work against the ones that illusorily try to get you. In the case of your question, obviously, I'm for human rights, which includes trans rights, because trans are human beings, which many people who are anti-trans seem to forget conveniently. Yeah, and so I'm for the rights of people to be what they want to be and to do what they want to do, as long as it's not hurting anyone. Why do I care? So there we go. So there we go. Mysticism, all the magical stuff I do, magical stuff that other people do, seems to, my response, trans rights because human rights, what's the issue? There we go, some of all noobs. We're all on the same sort of boat, I imagine, with that one. So a lot of writing I see that attached to Discordianism, like chaos magic, is about manifesting the magician's will, of doing an act, shooting a fireball out of your hand, or all that stuff that D&D has taught us is what magic should be about. Whereas all the magic that I do is about, I'm going to term this in the magical phrase, I'm going to send it out like sonar and see what comes back. Mysticism is like magic, but it's like the magical. Magic is speaking. Mysticism is listening. Yeah? And all you do that is mystic is to say, well, what does the universe think of this? Yeah. So, for example, we are in the month now of Bloon. That is what the goddess told me the month is called. And it was one of those, it was interesting with Mapril that I got that through. It's Mapril 1 of 2, which told me immediately that the following month was 2 of 2, Mapril 2 of 2. And indeed, that vibe did persist throughout the whole period. Yeah. As soon as I got to Bloon, I didn't know what I was going to call this month. And then I was stood at the place where I write the name of the month on a whiteboard. And it was like, this month is called Bloon. Now, in that mystic process, I do get a veto. If I could think of any reason the month would not be called the first thing that I am told that it should be called, then I can say that. But I couldn't think of any reason not to call the month Bloon, so Bloon it is. So that's where we are. And that's the point. What am I trying to manifest? Who the hell knows? It doesn't matter. I am listening. I am receiving the Bloon vibe and therefore retransmitting it via the e-chapel. And that is what mysticism is all about. You try and receive things and then you retransmit them. Recognize calm disruption. Exactly. Sort of the same. It's a branch of mysticism, because mysticism is supposed to help you tune in. It's supposed to increase your perception of vibes, and therefore, because vibes are subtle, the disruption that comes with calm. So there we go. Probably dig more into that in the future. And last of all, of course, awake your inner magician. Now that's what's really interesting about it, because we don't. Suppose we do have the word mystic to describe someone as a mystic. So you could say awaken your inner mystic just as well. But really, we refer to anyone who does all this weird stuff as a magician. But I would say that a magician has a focus on conjuration, making things happen, whereas a mystic has a focus on putting stuff out there and seeing what comes back, which is far more what I'm into. So finally, I should probably explain before we move on what the world of chaos even actually is. It just means that the goddess has made it known to me that we've had enough faces for the time being, which is true. We've had nearly a year, although she took an extended leave of absence during some of the services that we had here. And she would rather that I am often found thinking, oh, you know what? The world itself is pretty crazy at the moment. It's like you can see that it's a time of discordia, because the weirder things are, the weirder they get, and you just have to sit there and let the weirdness come to you. Yeah, but we could clarify that, couldn't we? The World of Chaos section, which is going to be what replaces Faces of Eris from next week going forward, is how did the world get weirder this week? And I can bring my ways, but if you too have seen something that is weird, you can send it to me ahead of the service or mention it during the service itself. And I guess that the idea, and it sort of again come out of this Saints' Day point issuing exercise, in that we are learning through. That's one of the things, that you're trying to give points and you want to see and perceive, and we want to perceive the chaos and the weirdness in the world and sort of remark upon it. So there we are. There are some really obvious weird things, but even in this, we've talked about the red and blue and the political parties, how left and right don't really exist anymore, and that is it's a weird thing that people still continue to act as if it's a thing in the UK and the US, when in neither the UK nor the US is it a thing. In the US, it's elephants all the way down, or just evil MFs, left, right, red, blue, evil, evil, evil. Are we team Trump or team Elon? The answer is neither. The ultimate meme that came out of this whole affair was a picture of the two of them captioned Alien versus Predator. And if we remember the strapline of the movie of Alien vs Predator, it went, whoever wins, we all lose. And that is where we're at. So in America, there is no red, blue, there are no goodies and baddies, it's just baddies. And no matter who wins their internal struggles, we're all going to lose as a result of that. That's how it works. And in the UK, it used to be the forces of labour and the working man. It's very much like Metropolis by Fritz Lang. He made a dichotomy between the forces of labour and the forces of, toffs, really, rich people, very class conscious kind of. So the Conservatives were the party of moneyed toffs, and the Labour Party were the party of the working man and his working hands and all of that, right? But we've had a situation where the Conservatives have sleazed themselves into literal oblivion, whereas Labour have turned into the party of neo-capitalism. So not toffs, but kind of nouveau rich corporate evil slime bags, very similar to the corporate interests in the US. What a surprise. Versus, the shadow in the door is a party called Reform, who are in fact not a real party, but actually a private limited company. But who happen to be, due to loopholes in electoral law, they're allowed to stand for political positions and have won a few to predictably chaotic results, who basically stand for the same evil corporate slime balls that the former Labour Party stood for. So I guess the picture here is baddies all the way down as well. There's a little bit more nuance to it in the UK, but that's basically the headline. And yet what's really interesting, in the UK there's a headless left. There's a bunch of people who are, I'm left wing. Well, who are you politically with then? Nobody really, because my views are not really represented, I don't feel, in the political spectrum that exists, which is just madness, right? So that's a pretty big one. I don't really want to be dwelling on that one particularly much, so that's why I've kind of dealt with it now. But essentially, that's kind of the point of the World of Chaos, is to look for things that are just plain weird. I have seen stories that are just plain weird crop up, and now I am consciously looking for them, and so should you be. And that is what the World of Chaos is about. Forget the sort of banal World of Chaos events, which are still chaotic, but we know them, we see them, we have them rammed down our throat daily. And look for the really weird stuff that's happening off to the left or off to the right. Nobody's trying to distract you from them, because they're just weird. They just get reported because, hey, this is weird. And that's what the World of Chaos is all about. Happy chaos hunting. It's that time. It's time for the tarot. Once again, we are in the situation where I have shuffled the deck 5 times. I have cut the deck once. And sitting on the top of the deck right now, therefore, is the card that is the vibe for the week. I don't know what it is. You don't know what it is. But we're going to find out what it is together. And it is. I don't do reversals. For those people that know anything about tarot, I think 78 possible values is enough. So why do people hate trans people? They have done literally nothing bad or wrong. That is an excellent question, which would have gone over well in Kandar. I don't know. Right. There are certain figures who... Right, okay, there's a bit in The Silence of the Lambs where Hannibal Lecter explains to Clarice Starling that Buffalo Bill is not a transsexual, but believes that he should be because of his pathology, and that is why he is making a suit out of skin. Admittedly, this is a story written by famous weirdo eccentric Thomas Harris, but the fact is that there are people who have... There are people who have used the status of these states of being and the ignorance that many people have of them in order to exploit other people, and those people have then developed, But the point is that as we march on this march of progress towards the acceptance of all people, of all genders and orientations, that is inevitable, however much people may push back against it. As we move towards that point where we realise that it's just people trying to be who they feel happy being and trying to find people that they feel happy being with, who love them for them, and then they can be together. And as we realise that that is the case, then it becomes easier to take these people who have been damaged, damaged people, whatever it is, hurt people. That's the one. You can say to them, yes, you had a bad experience, but someone can repurpose anything. I mean, the number of cult leaders that repurpose the concept of, completely heterosexual marriage in order to turn them into a twisted hellscape of psychodrama is quite large, and yet nobody's like, yeah, down with these heterosexuals, because I was with this cult leader and he twisted heterosexual norms and values so that nobody does that, and yet they do. Tickled people tickle people, break the cycle, indeed. Anyway, the Hierophant. Wow, gosh, what an amazing thing. You asked that question just at the time that this vibe came out. The Hierophant also can be known as the Pope, but people tend to stick with Hierophant because Hierophant because the Pope is the Pope, right? Catholic head of Catholicism. And so, and of course, we in the Discordian Church are all popes. Every single one of us, every man, woman, and those who don't like to be pigeonholed is a pope. Yeah? And so the Hierophant is like an abstracted, a sort of religious leader, but very bound up in dogma or katma, depending on which, kind of ma you prefer. Yeah, they are the arbiter, the advisor, the disseminator. So you have these two cards. You have the High Priestess, and she is the guardian of sacred knowledge. Yeah, sacred occult knowledge, and the Hierophant is the distributor, the evaluator, the messenger of ancient traditional knowledge, which isn't so occult because it's got a mouthpiece in the Hierophant. So we're talking, and it's a loud secret. It's one of the major arcana, and therefore it's a very heavy vibe, which just means it's very pervasive. And what's really weird is that we've just done this whole thing where we're examining these structures, bias, talking about, picking through the rights and the wrongs of some heavy issues, and that is entirely a Hierophant thing. I am technically, as the pastor, even though we're all popes, I'm the sort of popiest pope because I'm the pastor, so I'm the Hierophant. So the vibe of the week is very much consider these traditional, and by traditional I don't mean old. I mean, consider the things we take for granted as the structure of society and stuff like that. Can I borrow money from you? Need cash for the week. I don't have any cash on me, and if I did, the only way I could hand it to you is like that, and I don't think it will actually cross the lens of the camera and come out of your screen. So I don't have it. I have no way of getting it to you. And I believe that all electronic transfer is voodoo. Unless it's me like transferring money to my wife, because I can see that happen in real time. If I was to pay someone I couldn't even see, who doesn't sell their... Tell you what, put something up for sale on the Amazon marketplace and then I can buy it that way. Can you PayPal me like $50? No, I can't. And I'm not being facetious there. I think I have a PayPal account. I'm pretty sure that at one point everyone has a PayPal account and I'm no different. But when was the last time I even looked at it? I couldn't tell you. How do I use it? Wouldn't have a clue. Yeah, PayPal and me, because it's not a bank. And it's not regulated. I just am paranoid and I don't. So yeah, I am the person on earth that doesn't use PayPal or Venmo. I know that Venmo exists. I don't know what it does. There is, yeah. So there we go. You can see my chats. I can see your chats, yes, but can I transfer money with the chats? Actually, weirdly, and not right now, because you yourself, TF2 Real Gamer, said, I'm sick of seeing advert breaks. Why are you an affiliate? Actually, I said, I was like, why am I an affiliate? I don't even want to be an affiliate. You said, why don't you stop being an affiliate then? And I was like, yes, you are right. I will stop being an affiliate because there's no point to it whatsoever. And so now you can't even give me money via Twitch, which I understand is part of the point of Twitch chat, where people are concerned about that at all. But I am not. And that's why I was like, I agreed with you and took steps to say, hey, you won't get any ads if I'm not even affiliated. So that's where we're at. So there we go. And the great advantage of that is that I PayPal you like $50. No, because I don't know how PayPal works. But the great advantage of that is that I don't have to worry about it. And what's really interesting is that it used to be they say, well, you want to be an affiliate if you're trying to get people to give you money, because and as well as which it increases your visibility on the site. But I understand that went the way of the dodo sometime in 2019. So there's no advantage. You're no more visible as an affiliate. The only time you become more visible is if you're a Twitch partner. And then only slightly, but by then you've got so many followers, it's ridiculous anyway. So yeah, that was just an interesting thing that I thought. So in answer to your full rounded question, I cannot. Oh, my son just came in to diss me. It's cool, and I'm going to pass it on to you guys. Pay it forward. Yeah. Nice. So you can't have my money, but you can have my love, TF2 Real Gamer 2022. As can you, some of all noobs. And you, MK Zariel, you all get that love. So let's move on from the Reflective Tower to the weekly supplement. It is time to get your consumables to hand. Interestingly, in the course of the last week, I did watch a video which was not about Catholicism, but was featuring people who had been involved in the Eucharist. And apparently, with the actual Eucharist, you are not supposed to chew the wafer. You must let it dissolve on your tongue, which having had rice paper, which is pretty much what Eucharist wafers are made of, it's like when you let rice paper go melty on your tongue, the reason it's called paper is because it does feel like you've got gooey wet papier-mâché wrapped around your tongue. It is horrible. I cannot imagine. I mean, I can understand why, because the Eucharist wafer is, of course, supposed to transubstantiate itself into the flesh of a demigod. Yeah, that is the lore, the mythos of the Eucharist. So I guess that it is generally agreed that sitting there with the flesh of a demigod in your mouth, going nom 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 nom, is probably a bad look even. However, our Eucharist is much better than that, because it is not supposed to represent the flesh of a god or a demigod. It is supposed to represent a hot dog, a thing that is traditionally chewed. So if you want to chew your sacrament, you're perfectly welcome to do so. Just another way that Discordianism is better than literally everything else. And with that little sacramental story that I bring to you, we of course recite the mantra that goes with it. I could not find a hot dog, not even with a bun. So I consume this random consumable because devotion comes with fun. Hail Eris, all hail Discordia. Chewing. The sacramental vibe is very calming on this Friday evening. And that is where we're at, people. That is where we're at. A whole service, a pretty heavy service. And what was really great about the heavy service was that you guys all came in with appropriate derailments at appropriate times. And yet we managed to it sort of stuck together, even though I was perfectly happy for it to sort of take random digressions and go off in circumstances. There's true spirit of Discordianism in the chapel tonight. And so with that in mind, I send thee off with the blessings of chaos to consider, yes, this world of chaos that lies about us, and to take in the beauty of chaos, which of course is what keeps us all chaotic, all free, and all Discordians together, sticking apart together, which is ideally done through some sort of electronic medium, such as this. Nights all, and hail Eris.